Welcome to episode 644 of Salsidoparanormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight we are continuing our review of Orpheus, Mythos of the World by Padraic. And if you'd like to, you can find all episodes of the podcast and links to social media and other ways to contact me at the podcast page. That is salsidoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. Always happy to hear from you all, whether you have comments or questions or topic suggestions or accounts of paranormal experiences, whether they're your own or from others that you trust. Happy to either read those or have you join me on the show to talk about them. Thank you all for listening, whether you are here for the live streams on Discord or if you listen to the podcast or YouTube feeds, or on the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where you can hear replays of 2 episodes of my show every night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, right before Troubled Minds Radio comes on. And as always, I want to thank Michael Strange, host of Troubled Minds Radio, for having me on the network and putting all my shows up there. If you'd like to support my show, you can do that in a few different ways. You can always share the show with others and rate and review it on your favorite podcast platforms. You can find books I've written, paranormal fiction and nonfiction, including my most recent release, Salsido Paranormal Experiences, the first book to be directly connected to the podcast, over on Amazon. You can also sign up for the Patreon page, where you will get, starting next week, you'll be getting 1 extra episode per week, whenever possible. Or you can just make one-time donations through PayPal. Support is never expected, but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows, from equipment to research materials to travel expenses in some cases. I think that takes care of everything. So, again, how I do these reviews of these public domain books is I get AI to summarize them, and then I read those summaries on the show. And then we talk about the possible paranormal aspects of them whenever we think of any. So whether it's myself or anyone in the chat, and go from there. So, and we're getting closer to being done with this book, from what I can tell, based on how much is left and everything. So it's really been amazing, and hopefully everyone has enjoyed it, other than my mispronunciations, and I apologize for that. Next time when I do one of these books, I will make sure to have everything phonetic. What do you call them? I'll make sure to have everything set up where I can easily pronounce things. Put it that way. So yeah, getting back to the material here, we left off at the start of the section on Peruvian mythology, and this first section here is about Viracocha. The Incas worshipped the sun. Wow, I can't talk tonight. Considering it the greatest and most benevolent being, and called themselves the children of the sun. Tradition states that the sun took pity on humanity's primitive lifestyle and decided to guide them towards better living. The sun placed his 2 children, a son as in boy and daughter, in a boat on Lake Titicaca with a golden staff, instructing them to lead people to where the staff sank deeply into the ground. The children of the sun traveled to where the ancestors of the Incas lived, who at the time lived primitively, without crops, domesticated animals, or proper clothing. The children of the sun taught the people to live as families, recognize leaders, and follow them. They led the people to the fertile place where the staff sank deep into the ground. There, they taught the people to sow crops, manage water from the hills, tame llamas, weave garments, work with gold and silver, make pottery, and build houses villages, cities, and temples. Before leaving, the children of the sun told the people that the sun would adopt them as his children, urging them to be diligent and spread the worship of the sun. The people of the Inca race became known as the children of the sun and built a great temple with many serving as virgins of the sun. Some Incas began to believe in a greater deity, Viracocha, who was thought to have created the sun and moon and could perform miraculous feats. Viracocha, disguised as a beggar, fathered a child with the goddess Kaviaka, and I'm saying that the two L's as I'm basically, and I don't know if this is right, but as you would say in like tortilla, if you look at the way it's spelled, the word, it has two L's, but you actually don't say it as two L's that way. But anyway, I'm saying it that way is because it's the best way I can think of to say it. So, so Viracocha fathered a child with the goddess Kaviaka through a magical fruit. When the child identified Viracocha as his father, Kaviaka fled in shame, transforming into a rock in the ocean. Viracocha blessed the condor and puma for aiding him in his search for Kaviaka, while cursing the fox and parrots for their negative responses. So again, you have these favoritism of animals that you can see in different mythology. Viracocha encountered two virgins by the sea, charming their guardian serpent to gain access to them. So here you have, again, okay. So one became a dove, and the other stayed with him. The Virgin of the Sea showed him a pond containing all of the world's fish, which he released, allowing men to have fish to eat. Viracocha taught men many arts, including water management and terrace farming. He placed a great cross on the mountain Carave before leaving, promising to send messengers to protect and teach the people. The people remembered Viracocha through chants expressing their longing to see and know him. So you have a couple different ideas of how things started, but either way, they are they talk about how that part of the world got going with sort of what they eventually ended up having. So that's always amazing. This next section here is the llama herder and the Virgin of the Sun. A young llama herder named Arroyo Napa played his flute while tending his flock of white llamas near the house of the Virgins of the Sun. Two Virgins of the Sun, including a princess named Chikoi Lantu, translated as shadow of a lance, often listened to his music from behind the rocks. One day, Arroyo Napa saw the two virgins near two fountains. Mistaking them for embodiments of the fountains, he knelt before them, and they gave him their hands to kiss. Shadow of a Lance, I'm just going to go that way, fell in love with Arroyo Napa. Before returning to the house of the virgins, she took a silver plate from his forehead. Wow, okay. Which depicted two figures eating a heart. Shadow of a Lance, back at the house of virgins, so even the AI went with that instead. That's kind of funny. Dreamt of a Chicoyo bird and shared her sorrow over her love for the llama herder. The bird instructed her to sing by the fountains. If the fountains sang back, a remedy would come. She sang, and the fountains echoed her song, lulling her. Arroyo Napa's mother, the woman of the mountain, dreamt of her son's sorrow. She went to him at dawn, finding him near, tear-streaked, and learned he had given his silver plate to a virgin of the sun. Isn't that amazing? If it was on his forehead, that almost sounds like an emblem. How would that be in a living being, a regular human being? That would be quite the thing to have there. It makes you wonder, again, some of these beings, these entities, they have abilities, including having these features that most others don't have. So the woman of the mountain covered her son with a magic cloak and gathered herbs. She served the herbs to the two princesses when they arrived. The princesses searched the hut and admired the cloak, which Arroyo Napa had become part of due to the magic. Shadow of a Lance requested the cloak as a keepsake. Back at the House of the Virgins, Shadow of a Lance sang by the fountains, but they did not respond. She wept and noticed the cloak turning back into Arroyo Napa. They spent the night together, and the fountains sang to them. In the morning, they tried to flee, but were pursued by the guards of the House of the Virgins of the Sun. The sun turned Arroyo Napa and Shadow of a Lance into stones, and they remain as stones between Calca and another location, Huayllapampa, Huayllapampa, to this day. So that's the end of that section. So yeah, here you have again. So many of these myths involve the transformation of one thing into another, of sentient beings into what would appear to be objects without any kind of sentience. But then again, so many of these accounts are about features of the planet that appear to be sentient. So how do we really know? That's an amazing idea. And again, goes to this idea that there are different levels of consciousness in all things, or different states of it, or however you want to look at that, and including in the stones and rocks and of course, I mean, obviously animals and plants and all those things. And now over years, they've been proving that plants seem to be aware of their surroundings and will react to them. So, and to each other as well. So, moving on to the next section here. This is about Central American and Mexican mythology. So the first section here is in the beginning. Tepeu, Tepeu, and Gucumatz, Gucumatz, were alone, enveloped in green and azure, with silence and stillness all around. Sky was boundless, waters were quiet, and no objects were connected or upright. They meditated and consulted, becoming aware of Huracan, Hurakan, the heart of the sky. Commanded by a divine voice, they created earth, mountains, forests, rivers, and seeds. The gods created animals and gave them their habitats: deer, puma, opossum, coyote, porcupine, Peccary? Peccary? I wonder what that is. I have to look that up. Birds and fish. Animals could not speak or glorify the gods, which displeased their creators. The gods then created men of clay, who could not move properly or speak sensibly. They were destroyed by the gods. The gods then made men of wood, who could move, speak, and reproduce, but lacked memory and hearts. These men were destroyed by a heavy rain, attacks from bats, owls, other animals, and even inanimate objects like pots and utensils. Survivors became monkeys. That's wild. The gods then made men of maize, which is a type of corn, from white and yellow maize mixed with the blood of the tapir and the serpent. 4 men of maize were created. Balaam Quetze? Balam-Quitze. Balaam Agab. Mahakuta. And Equibalam. And I'm not sure if I'm saying any of those right. I apologize. These men saw and understood everything which concerned the gods. The gods veiled their vision with a mist. Isn't that amazing? You have this whole story here. The first few versions were destroyed, and then when they finally got one that had created some beings that were aware of things, they had to sort of cloud their vision because it was too good. It was too much. So I find that, and it makes me think of course, the idea that it has been around for a long time now, the idea of the veil between the worlds or levels of reality or whatever you want to call it, or the veils, however you want to look at that. So the gods created wives for the first men, who then had children and prayed for more light. They lived without a sun initially, in the place of the 7 caves and ravines. Tohil, Tohil, the god given to Balaam Quitze's clan, provided fire. Other clans suffered without fire. First men sought the place of sunrise, despite ominous warnings from birds and other creatures. They crossed the sea by parting waters with a staff. Where does that sound familiar? And met Zakiquaxel, who they placated with gifts. So, of course, anyone that's familiar with biblical, and I'm not super familiar with it, but the whole idea of the sea being parted and then brought back together again, parted to save people and then brought back together again to destroy others. So let's see here. Next section here, the appearance of the sun. The first men reached the place of sunrise, witnessed the morning star and the dawn. The sun appeared small and pale, but dried the earth. Animals and first beasts, like jaguars and pumas, turned to stone. Wow. So much mythology involves beings being turned into stone. That's amazing. And if you think about stone, it's not what they were, but it's, if nothing else happens to it, it can stay where it is for a long time and appear not to change or not to be altered at all. So the first men's final journey. They reached the mountain Hakavitz, Hacavitz, saw the sun, moon, and stars, and sang of their completed work. they disappeared into the mountain, leaving no trace behind. So that's an amazing idea there. The idea that you have these beings that made this huge journey and then they went into the ground, and there's so many reports of mythology of people and other beings going into and out of the ground. And even now there's the ideas of sort of a hollow earth, or even more caves than we are aware of, and they're being inhabitants in them. And so many stories of that. Of course, there's the idea that some cryptids use those caves as well. And you can go as far as you want with that. There's a lot out there on sort of what is beneath the surface of the planet. Let's see here. So this next section is rather long. So we're going to I'm going to just give you all a preview of what we'll be covering in the next episode of this series here. The Twin Heroes and the Lords of Xibalba. Xibalba. That's the next major section here. Section within the... okay. That's Logan tearing into a box for some reason. It's my cat. Anyway, Quetzalcoatl is also a major section here. Let's see here. Just scrolling down and checking into more of it. It goes on with more about that and his enemy. So, getting into more of Mexico and Central America, more of the mythology there. So that'll be the next mythology episode that we do, and that'll be next week. Going to beyond that will be the Aztec, or the Azteca, and as they call it here. And so, and then the Zuni mythology here, going to other parts of the world. So, that's where I'm going to end the mythology episode here as far as covering anything else today. Thank you all for listening. Please check out all the links in every episode description. There are many now between the book that just came out, and then, of course, links to friends, good friends of the show, especially in the previous episodes where I have guests. If they have their own projects, I make sure I put their links in those episodes as well. Please be sure to check out the station, the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP, digital broadcasting. There's great shows playing there all day, all night, 24/7. And so I'm sure you'll find something there, probably almost everything there that you will enjoy. And thank you all for listening. Again, the schedule will change a little bit next week with recording and with the number of shows that come out, but hopefully it'll be for the best. And I will continue my Twilight Zone review series whenever possible. That will be coming out whenever I get a few episodes done. I'll release those in groups of 5 to go along with the regular shows. And so that's the plan for the future of the show here. Getting closer to Halloween, the anniversary of the show, which is really amazing that we're already almost there. Less than 2 months away now. So have to figure out what I'm going to do special for that once we get there. Thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsidoparanormal. Take care.